everyone. Welcome back to the channel. Shout out to everybody in the chat. Shout out to my mods, the members, the subs, everybody. Thank you so much for joining us tonight. Now, I wish I could just come up here and be like, I'm the expert of this topic, but I'm not. So, but I have an expert, okay? And I was shamingly doing a little bit more research on Scientology. I said, because there's got to be more to what us, the public, see. You know, we watch the Aftermath docu-series. We watch, you know, maybe CNN or an interview here and there. But what a great opportunity for us to really learn from, you know, as YouTubers, from one community to the next. And truly, that helps avoid any silos and really, really, really brings attention to the issues at hand. If, you know, this being a cult, what can we do to support? So, you know, I'm going to bring up Sterling here in a minute, but I wanted to just give a little intro to what we're talking about today. If you don't know what Scientology is defined as the study and handling of the spirit in relationship to itself, universe, and other life. And of course, I'm going to have Sterling to help me understand this definition a little bit more. Like Christianity, Scientology is another religion, but instead of focusing on God, those who practice focus on the science of the mind with the goal of spiritual enlightenment and freedom. Okay. Those who believe in Scientology are known as Scientologists. They believe in an immoral spirit and improving their spirit while on earth. The earth does not focus on heaven. Excuse me, the religion does not focus on heaven or hell. Instead, it focuses on the spirit and mind. You tell me, is that a great definition? Because that is for somebody that's like reading a textbook, I'd be like, oh, well, that's interesting. Tell me more.
Honestly, you know, and I guess that wasn't bad. First of all, hey, how you doing, by the way? I'm so glad to be on here with you.
Guys, welcome, Sterling. You guys drop some hearts, some flowers, everything in the chat to welcome this man to my channel. Thank you so much. And we're streaming in 2 platforms, mine and yours. So shout out to you guys.
So much. Thank you so much for having me on. I really appreciate it.
Yes.
As you know, someone commented in one of my videos, hey, did you see what the other person was saying about Sterling? And I was like, oh, I'd like to see what this other person's saying about Sterling. I watched your video. I appreciated your content. I appreciated your unbiased view on the things that went down around Thanksgiving, the whole fiasco, and that sort of truth and that sort of approach to something is something I respect. And so you know, when you said, you know, I don't remember how it went down, but either way, you let me be on your channel, and I really appreciate that. I really do.
Oh my God, you're awesome. And you know what? In full transparency, I am really nervous, and I don't know why. I don't know why. I'm not typically like I'm not. You know, I've interviewed, you know, in outside of here, but I don't know why. But anyways, go ahead, Sterling. So, well, was my definition okay as a non-Scientologist, or was that just like?
I would say okay, but here's one thing that we tend to talk about between some of our channels, and there's a lot of people have different experiences in Scientology. In my particular case, I did not progress in Scientology that much. I was not a giant fan or practitioner of Scientology. I never learned to do their self-help procedures, their auditing procedures, or anything like that. So just to make it easy on everyone, there is no better description of Scientology than I have ever seen anywhere than Aaron Smith Levin's Lex Fridman interview. So if you have not seen that and you want to understand the nuts and bolts of Scientology better than anyone's ever explained it, I would just say go there. Having me try to explain it, I think will be convoluted. I only really remember bits and pieces. I can address some specific stuff, but really I didn't know it as a subject as much. I wanted to just do my job as best as I could and try to be as happy as I could while I was there. So Scientology as a subject never super fascinated me. If that's about as honest as I can say it.
Were you born into Scientology, or did you just say, I'm joining Scientology today? Like, how did that?
I was born into Scientology. So I'm, you know, people correct me on this all the time. I'm actually a 3rd generation Scientologist.
Okay.
So on my mom's side, my grandma was a Scientologist. My mother then became a Scientologist and met my father while both in the Sea Organization, and I will define that. The Sea Organization is sort of the clergy of Scientology. It's the management arm of Scientology. It's the group that signs the billion-year contract that gets paid far less than minimum wage, that works pretty much 365, 24/7 for their entire lives. And that is where my parents were when my twin brother and I were born. They both worked with L. Ron Hubbard on the Apollo. And when the Apollo was no longer being used, they moved into Florida, which they like to call the Flag Land Base.
Oh,
It was there in 1976 that my brother, Justin, my twin brother, and I were born. So we were born into Scientology. Absolutely. Absolutely.
gotcha. So for those that don't understand, Scientology started with Ron L. Hubbard through the book Dianetics, correct?
Yes.
To me as an outsider, now I was born and raised Catholic. It's all I've ever known. I have, family members that, are priests. That's the lineage that I have. But I'm kind of wondering, like, what makes Scientology different than other religions, in your opinion?
I think in a lot of ways, it's a little bit of a trend that I've noticed, but the newer the religion, the more judgment they have on the previous religions that started before them.
Yes.
What differentiated is that Scientology, though it masquerades as a religion, it really is not a religion per the standard definition, but it's less faith and more scientific. But it's scientific in that they think it's scientific. There's no peer review studies on their processes, on their results or anything like that. They do believe they have a scientific approach to religion, but none of that can be proved, nor has it been proved, even down to their purification program, which when I was there, it's a sweat out program, essentially. When I was there, I did it and I loved it, but I was also exercising every day and drinking a lot of water. So that there's an exercise endorphin factor that fits into that, and also a placebo effect. So
Gotcha.
Scientology in a nutshell, it believes it's a science of life more than it is a religion. I think it just took the religion moniker for tax reasons. And there is so much good content on that, guys. You just have to look that up. There's so many people that are talking about stories. There's people that were with L. Ron Hubbard on the boat. There's different channels that talk about working with him and when the religion was created and all that sort of stuff that gets into more detail about that. But from my point of view, they masquerade also as a science. They do truly believe that what they're practicing has an exact result every time because it's scientific. It's like math. You're going to get the same result every time if you do the numbers right. But that's not, in my opinion, that's not true at all. Even in the slightest.
Man.
Yeah.
It's interesting because I was watching some of your conversations with Aaron and the lingo that you guys have between the two of you. First of all, as somebody that's not, it's very hard to kind of pick up, like, okay, I guess this means this. And
it's super hard. And
it is super hard.
Yeah.
And somebody said, I had to write this down, Sterling. Somebody said, I think it was Aaron who said in one of his conversations with you that how do people know each other? Like, how do you know so-and-so and had the close-knit community that you guys have as being in this situation?
That's a great question. But here's something that some people don't understand. Scientology is really not that big. They pretend to be. They do Super Bowl ads. Tom Cruise is a Scientologist. John Travolta is a Scientologist. But I believe when the numbers were crunched, and they were crunched by Aaron, and Aaron, though he pretends he does not know math because he was in a cult, he's just playing around with that. He's a wicked smart individual. But when you crunch the numbers based on the amount of orgs, and he did a wonderful video on this, they really have between 30 and 40,000 followers worldwide. They are tiny. They pretend that they're going to fix the entire planet, but they couldn't fix one square block in Hollywood if they really, really tried. So it is a small, small world. Now, I didn't know Aaron in Scientology. I never met him. I found out about him after. I am part of, because I was David Miscavage's nephew, who was the head of Scientology. And even if it was for just a short little bit, I I was up at Golden Air Productions, the film studio, and at the international property where The Hole was, where Tom DeVock was, where Mike Rinder was, Amy Scobie, all those guys. I was at that location. Aaron was never there. So I never met Aaron prior to leaving and him contacting me. But I also really enjoy doing content with him. He's a special person with a fascinating mind who reports the news of Scientology better than anyone. And is the one that got me to start my channel, which has been
shout out to Aaron.
Yeah, right. Yeah,
he's in the chat. Shout out. Thank you, Aaron, for the $9.99.
Oh, yeah. Okay.
I know he's in there. So and this is just my when I think of Scientology, and I'm just being very transparent, I think of it like as a celebrity religion. Right. Because of the people and the faces that we see, the glamour, behind it. But then you have, this SPTV group, and you guys are speaking against it. Like, how do you? It's just lands kind of weird. I don't know why.
Yeah, well, it's interesting. A lot of people have said that about Scientology is that the end of Scientology, the thing that catches them the most is the internet, because it gave a voice to so many people to speak out and tell their stories. And there's a lot of horrible stories out there. And most of the people that are pushed to the point of doing content on SPTV have some sort of horrific story. Reese, relatable Reese, how she was raised by her father, how she was treated, the beating with computer hardware, all that sort of stuff is horrific. So I think, obviously YouTube is a juggernaut, and I would say, I think Aaron is the initial person to get that rolling on YouTube and create, and lend out and help out all the content creators to start using their voices. Whereas before, and for example, Going Clear. And if anyone in this chat has not seen Going Clear, it's on HBO. It is a fantastic documentary.
Yes,
and as a person who's been in different levels of Scientology and who was at that particular base and who knows Tom DeVock and a lot of the other people in that film, that was spot on, completely factual, and completely accurate. It was a fantastic film. Leah Remini's show with Mike Rinder, also fantastic and wonderful. Those two things really helped push people speaking out to the forefront, because I think at one point it snowballed so much that Scientology couldn't handle all the traffic. Whereas before, if you wrote a book, you may reach 10,000 people, possibly. And even if you wrote that book, you're going to be harassed by Scientology. They're going to attack you. They're going to say lies about you, etc. Now it's so big as a movement, they can't do anything about it. They can't stop it. And I think we're at that point where if we just continue with what's being done, and hey, I'm the new person on the block when it comes to this. So I don't want to sound like I'm one of the first people that did this. I'm riding on coattails to some degree. But when it was my time to finally speak out and do it, it was quite a relief. And I'm loving seeing different content creators therapeutically talk about their stories and get those out so people can hear them. And I do see people talking, and I can see when they're relaying the information, just the relief they're getting and the friendship they're building and the interaction with the chat and the subscribers. It's amazing. The people that support SPTV are fantastic. The emails I get on a daily basis are just would melt your heart. It's unbelievable.
Oh man.
And that's one thing I didn't expect. I had no clue that was a side effect of doing this particular thing. The support is unreal.
Yeah. It's global support, that's for sure. Because I've seen people that are not like, myself, that just kind of come together and they're just curious. We want to know. I think about psychology and Scientology, right? It sounds like those two don't mesh very well. I'll never forget the quote that was it Brooke Shields, that Tom Cruise said to Brooke Shields about postpartum depression, and myself being a mom and having had bouts of that, and the disconnection. I'm a social worker in real life.
Yes.
Would I if I became a Scientologist, would they want me in there being a social worker and
No,
doing any kind of therapy? All right, just making
no, they wouldn't.
okay.
That would be considered other practices, but
Oh,
also,
okay.
yeah. Look at
Damn.
part of the issue with Scientology is they are so arrogant. They really, really believe that they have the only answer, and everyone else is just fumbling around a little bit. I did a series of 2 or 3 videos on mine called "Stupid Stuff." Stuff isn't the real word. Stupid stuff Tom Cruise says, and that's one of them. Tom Cruise at an event in a video for Scientologists and Sea Org members actually said that if there's a scene of an accident and something's happened, we know as Scientologists, we are the only people that can really help. Yeah. It's an absurd statement.
What?
It's so arrogant to say that. Now, if you had included police officers, firefighters, paramedics, EMTs, and said us and them, that would have been a little bit different statement. But he actually said only Scientologists can help in that situation, which was that there's the arrogance right there. They truly, truly believe that they are the one and only answer to all the ills on this planet and in this universe. Because there's a space opera form of Scientology that's kind of crazy as well.
That I'm like, what? Well, there you go.
Yeah.
Can't be a social worker and a Scientologist at the
No,
same time.
for sure not. No, for sure. They would tell you at the door, yes, but definitely not.
No,
Definitely not.
not in the vaccines, right?
No.
When I heard you talk to Aaron a little bit about the fact that you didn't even know about that you had a social security number until you were about 18, around the time that you were choosing to leave. Is that correct?
That's absolutely correct.
How so people are allowed to leave. Are
Yes.
people that leave always harassed? Is that how it works? Or I guess I'm confused by that part.
That's an interesting question, and it's a case by case basis with that.
Okay.
And it depends on how you leave and how close you were in proximity to David Miscavage or particular information inside the organization. So I could give you my story about that, and I was not harassed, and I don't have an answer for you exactly why they didn't harass me. What they did do was put people in and around my life to report back, to keep tabs on me, my brother, and my sister because of our close relation to Dave Miscavige. Did they openly harass? Not that I know of. But my whole scenario is kind of unique, having in 2010 just left the United States and worked in Saudi Arabia for 5 years and London and all that kind of stuff. It's a little unique in that way, but they do harass. Janice Grady will tell you how when she went to Las Vegas, when she left, because she had known L. Ron Hubbard and knew a lot of information, they kept really close tabs on her. But that's when they could keep tabs on pretty much anyone that was leaving. That was before the giant rush of people that left. Between 1996 and 2010, I would say the bulk of people that are talking right now left Scientology.
Wow.
Yeah.
So when you left, having to be independent, learning about a social, I mean, what was that like for you? Like I heard you say that and I said, say what? And it's foreign to me because at the age of 6, I was working at 14, 15, right?
Yeah.
Not in any kind of camp or institution or anything or held anywhere. So I was a little bit like, I don't know about that. Yeah, I was like, what? You don't know what a social is? But anyways, go ahead.
Well, and that's a great question, right? Because it's like, well, I've told this story before, and it's a little funny, but there's a long story. We couldn't cover the whole track from when I left to when I finally was kind of free of the influence of Scientology. But I'll tell bits and parts that are significant to me. One of the things, and I told the story to someone recently, that was funny. So as I was leaving, of course, I was, I think, 27, 28 years old. I'd never had a credit card, though I did borrow my dad's credit card from time to time. He had gotten an inheritance when I was in Scientology or in the C organization. So, every once in a while I would either borrow his card without permission or he would give it to me. But I didn't know what credit was, didn't understand the concept, never had a bank account. I'd never written a letter for that matter when I had left. And my only real experience with outside life was through movies. And particularly when I was leaving in 2004, 2005, there was a point in my life where I was kind of, though I could walk out the door, and they might or might not follow me out the door, I still was trapped because I still wanted to have connection to my father and stepmother. And so I was kind of in this in-between space that was really difficult, but I was yearning to leave. And one of the things that helped get me through that whole moment was my twin brother had already left. And this is when DVDs were, obviously, just popping off the shelves. He used to sneak in all the Friends DVDs, season 1 through 7 or 1 through 8 to me. And I would watch those over and over again. And it was watching those where I kind of got the hope of, maybe I could live a life like that at some point. I was super excited about the idea of maybe getting to do that. I wanted to visit New York and a bunch of different things. But when I did leave, it was tough. I wanted to get into something where I could make money, but I also didn't know what make money meant. I didn't know what an hourly rate was. I didn't know what an average salary was. I had no clue. I was told I could not do anything that I learned while I was in Scientology in the real world. Like, not that I couldn't do it, that I was not allowed to, because they taught me those skills, and it would be wrong for me to use the skills I learned in Scientology in the outside world to make money, which is absurd, obviously.
What did you learn while you were there? I mean,
I'm always been kind of good with IT and technical stuff. So I learned a little bit of design. I learned the whole Adobe suite. I learned a little bit of movie editing and post-production video work. Also,
Gotcha.
I learned how to be an arborist, and I was a heavy equipment operator as well. So I could pretty much drive anything. I had a Class A license, hazmat tanker passenger school bus. So I had a few skills, but funny enough, none of them were in one particular direction. It was just a myriad of different skills I had. So me trying to find somewhere to fit in was difficult.
Imagine doing a resume or a job application and then saying, well, I can't put what I learned for the last however many years into that to get hired.
Right.
My goodness.
It was crazy. So at the time I had a friend. I didn't know that friend I was set up with that person. I'd known him previously. He had left the church, but he was still in good standing. When I left, I was declared, but not totally. It's sort of hard to explain that, but they had to be a little careful with me, but I was declared. So don't want to get too far down the rabbit hole in that one, pun intended. So I was with a person that did mortgages. So I was taught how to sell and process mortgages, not as a broker, but just as a salesman. And that's something I kind of could easily get into because, of course, it requires no resume to do that particular business. And I did that till about 2008, until the market crashed. And then I spent 2 years doing post-production work on a couple films in Hollywood. And at that point, I was like, I need to get out. I need to change. I need to do something different. And I need to do something that more fits what I want as a lifestyle and my personality. And that's when I through a friend and an agency, got a great job working in LA for a summer, doing driving and security, and then worked for a family doing that. They liked me enough. They said, anytime you want to leave the United States and work overseas for a little bit, we will pay your way and you can come out and work for us. And that's what I did for 5 years in Saudi and London and different places.
Wow.
Yeah. But that was the first time. That's where I say that was the first time I really felt like I escaped everything. Like, here I am. I've made it. I don't need to depend on anyone else. I don't need handouts from anyone else. Of course, having any foundation at that point earlier when I left would have been fantastic. But at the same time, I had to pull my bootstraps up and just work hard to get where I wanted to. So I didn't really get handouts. I did have help from family members. Like my mom put me up for a little bit, but really friends I made outside of Scientology. One of my closest friends to this day, his name's Shane, and he taught me how to do mortgages originally, and he let me stay at his house for a couple months when I got back on my feet.
Wow.
And he did that because he knew my Scientology story and wanted to help. And he was one of the people that I was like, I know there's a ton of good people out here because of people like him. But yeah. So there we go. In a nutshell, that
Sterling,
was my leaving. Yeah.
and not saying your age or anything, but I'm just kind of wondering, like, because you've been through so much, do you ever find yourself just being upset or angry about certain parts of your experience with Scientology? Like, does that ever get to you at this point in your life?
Not really. Not really. I mean, I get angry? Absolutely. Some people trigger me for sure, but I've been learning over the last couple of years to practice not being judgmental, to understand that humans by nature are imperfect, and not to take everything personally. And that's a hard lesson to learn, being kind of high strung, and I being high strung most likely because of my experience in Scientology, where in the C organization, where you must get everything right, otherwise you're in trouble.
Can you say that about David Miscavige at this point?
About what about David? That he's not high strung.
And I had to throw like one in there. Like, I'm just thinking of, like, and big entities like, or
Yeah.
personalities like that, right? I mean, could you say the same? Are there any
No,
aspects of that, or
no. David Miscavige is a tyrant through and through.
okay?
There's no question about that. Uh, I spent time with him. He was a family member. My mom was married to his brother. He personally did not like me at all. Uh, and my last conversation with him was him asking me to apologize and me refusing to apologize, because I couldn't understand why he would think that I needed to apologize for him when I personally thought I had been done wrong by Scientology. So
Absolutely.
he's never been a fan of mine. And someone would lie to you if they told you they didn't look up to David Miscavige at one point. Of course we did. He was the head of our church, of our religion. But it became pretty evident near the end of my career there that there was nothing good coming from that guy. He is vicious. He's malicious. He's mean-hearted. Can he be charming? Absolutely. But deep down, he's not a good person. He's a nasty person. And part of the reason why I left. And part of the reason why a lot of people left and are now speaking up.
One, I'll never forget, this was maybe in the Aftermath docuseries where his father was interviewed. For
Yeah.
whatever reason, out of the whole series, that one stands out to me the most as being like just the most disconnected human from humanity, I guess you would say, right? To want anybody dead, let alone your father, or wish any, or have anybody look. I cannot understand
Yeah.
that.
No, it's pretty bad. It's pretty bad. But remember, when you're in Scientology, part of the thought process that goes into it is that anyone attacking Scientology, and this is one of the cultish behaviors. If you're attacking Scientology, you're not just attacking Scientology. You want the world to fail, because they really believe that they're the only solution for the entire
Wow.
planet. See how that math works out for them? It's sort of,
Yeah.
it's very cultish. It's very idealistic. It's what you truly believe when you're there. And that's why I argue that most Scientologists, almost all the Sea Org members, are really good people. They really are there to try to help people. Their initial drive to be there is to save the planet or try to help out, which is why I think it's an important message to, besides also criticizing Scientology, to let them know that you can leave, you can be successful, you can be happy and live a happy life, and there's a safe place for you to come. And that's part of why I started my channel, because I wanted a little bit of that message to also be conveyed. There's a lot more people that have a lot more experience than me in certain subjects that talk about it better than me. My channel, and why I call it Leaving Scientology and Loving Life, is to give both ends of that horrible spectrum, the good side and the bad side of leaving and stuff like that. So
when you think of new generations, right, in Scientology, who does Scientology specifically target now?
Of course, I'm not there, so I'm just going to conjecture on that. But
Okay.
I think the only chance they have, due to social media, television, is to continue to take from their existing base the children that are born. So the second, the third, fourth, fifth generations. I can't imagine anyone in their right mind joining Scientology at this point, though I believe, and I've heard in other channels, they do tend to recruit from East Asia and Russia, Ukraine, different Eastern Bloc countries, because these people want to get over here and have a work visa or a religious visa. So I believe they're sort of picking from that part of the world at this point.
That is
Whereas,
crazy.
whereas where I was located, that wasn't the case. Though we did have a lot of Europeans at Golden Era Productions. It wasn't that they were picking from that base. It was really just a group of the most qualified people in the Sea Org and Scientology were at Golden Era Productions.
Wow.
Yeah.
That is, I mean, I just,
It's unreal.
It's amazing. It is, you know, and I just, you know, being Catholic, I mean, and I'm not the best Catholic, I'll tell you that. Probably the worst. But, you know,
That's what we
one
have
thing,
together. I wasn't the best Scientologist for sure.
well, listen, one thing you said, and you were talking about with Aaron, was the fact that you were very much oppositional defiant. That is totally me, even now, right? Where, you know, you kind of just, you should be allowed to wonder and question and ask questions about what you're praising or what exactly is going on, and nobody should feel uncomfortable with that.
Right. You know, and that's a great point because you're a social worker, so you deal with this you deal with a lot of this. The questioning thing is always fascinating to me, and also the tolerance level for mistreatment. And it's a question that's bugged me since I left, and I'm still trying to find an answer to it because, and I'll give you an example. I love reading science books. I love reading human history books. And I realize, at least in my belief, a lot of your natures, it has to do with how you were brought up, but also it's a little bit hereditary.
Yes.
And I want to understand, because I know people that were there that have left now that took a beating for 12 years, like horrific stuff. And I don't understand why at a certain point they just cut that straight off. Like, it didn't take, like, I was able to accept the no time off, the you know, no sleep, different things like that. But when it came to me personally, someone putting hands on me, someone trying to make me do work that I didn't want to do, and different things like that, I had a very, very short fuse. So I always am just trying to understand how some people were able to take so much shit for so long.
Yeah.
I don't understand that. And it's something I want to delve into because it just doesn't make sense. I don't understand. And it's not judging them because I understand they were in a cult. They believed in the what they thought was the true purpose of that group. But at the same time, at what point do you just stand up and say, you know, get lost? And for whatever reason, in my particular family, my twin brother, my little sister, my little brother, it didn't take long for them for that fuse to go off. They really did not take a whole lot of crap from people.
It was probably a buildup, right? At some point that it's just so much. But and let me do a little counter transference. It seems to me that this idea of them holding, like, not even them, but maybe the idea of possibly not having contact with your family, or what is that going to look like?
Yeah, that is actually a big factor. You know, that's correct. And I forgot to mention that part. You're right. It is one of the things that holds you in is either a loved one.
Yeah.
If you're married and you make the decision to leave, they will lock onto your spouse immediately. It's an unspoken rule. They will lock that person down. They will separate you instantly, and they will try to turn your opposite against you, for sure. Like, absolutely. Now, when I left, I was actually separated from my wife, so they had that wasn't an avenue for them, which was actually kind of lucky on my part that was the case at that moment. But they will do that, and yes, there is the factor of family. Absolutely. You are going to lose if they're still in Scientology, or if they're still in the Sea Org and you really want to leave and you're going to insist upon it to the point where you just walk out the door. Besides the pressure, besides the fear of not knowing where your life is going to go and you may be sleeping on the street, you also have the added pressure of knowing you may lose your entire family and the friend base that you grew up with. And that's an emotional, and that's trauma. Very, very much so. Very much so. Yeah.
So that was, I would assume, hanging over, right, to being like a factor of going or staying.
Absolutely.
Okay. Now, and not to be funny, right, but just the thought, signing a billion-year contract. I mean, I can't even renew my phone contract, let alone a billion. I don't want to renew. I don't want to renew it. I don't want to renew anything contract. I don't.
I'm pissed that I have to renew a lease on my apartment every every year. I'm so annoyed by it.
So somebody tells me 1 billion years.
Yes. Okay. So, and that's again, wonderful question.
Okay.
And don't ever worry about. So here's another thing. I'm just gonna, before I answer that question, I've seen some interviews where I'll give you a perfect example. Ron Miscavage Sr., David Miscavage's father, interviewed with Joe Rogan, and Ron Miscavige Sr. passed away. I think everyone knows that. Rest in peace. He was an interesting character. I think he had a big heart, but he could be rough around the edges. And what he did in the end was much appreciated, speaking out, saying what he said. But if you knew Ron Miscavige Sr. and you knew David Miscavige, you saw a lot of similarities. And that was not accidental.
Fall far from the tree, the saying, right?
That was not accidental. And that's not to throw Ron Miscavige under the bus, but I think that's just a fact that everyone can see if they were to watch.
Absolutely.
Now, Joe Rogan's an unbelievable interviewer. I watch a lot of Joe Rogan. And Ron Miscavige went on that show. And I believe it was the first time Joe Rogan ever stopped an interview at 1 hour rather than going his standard 3 hours. And that was because every time Joe tried to lighten it up a little bit or even make a little side comment, I don't believe Ron Miscavige Sr. could laugh at anything and kept being very serious with Joe. And if any of you have not watched that interview, you should please go watch it. It's very interesting to see. And why I bring that up is because I think important on these channels, or at least on my channel, is the ability to also look back and laugh at the ridiculousness of some of the things that went down, because it's not all horrible. It's not all bad, but there are some situations where you go, why did I sign a billion-year contract? Why did I clean all the windows of the buildings with newspaper when Windex and squeegees were around just because L. Ron Hubbard said to do it that way back in 1967? So there's some things you got to look back at and just laugh. So don't ever be afraid of asking me a question or even laughing about something in my experience, because
certainly, but we do these things, right? Like as a Catholic myself, I think of like, well, why am I here over, like, does that make sense logically for me at this point in my life? So I think about, like, yes, it's funny, but I think that there's a moment to kind of just pause and say, well, why am I doing that? Yes, it's silly, but what, and how many other religions or whatnot happen to do the same, maybe in a different way?
Right. No, I get that. I do look back at some things and just have to giggle about them. So my billion-year contract, I signed that when I was 8 or 9 years old, and I get McDonald's for doing it. So, you know, as far as I was concerned at that particular moment in time, I came out ahead on that deal.
As a child, you signed a contract, but yet I'm learning that children aren't necessarily, you know,
but of course,
children.
Right. But of course, did I have any concept of what 1 billion years meant?
No.
And is it actually a contract that can be enforced? No, either. But yes, I signed the contract. It made my dad very proud at the moment. And a lot of people look back on that and go, child abuse, it's horrible. And it is true. There's a form of it that is child abuse. For me, at that moment, it almost was the chosen path, and I didn't know any better. So that to me wasn't abuse. Abuse was what happened later with Dave Miscavige, what happened at Golden Era Productions, sleep deprivation, no time off, and the mental torture of constantly being in fear of not, waking up the next day and being sent away to some different continent, or being on their rehabilitation program, something along those lines. Everyone processes what was trauma to them differently. I don't tend to go with the whole victim mentality, but I do understand people that have that. I do it, but belittling the point of the billion-year contract, which is a little bit of a farce in the end. It's kind of like stupid. I laugh at it now. To me, that was just insane. But mind you, I started working when I was 9 or 10 years old. I have a photo of me, and I look like I'm 8.
Oh man.
And that's not correct in any way. And I acknowledge that. I didn't know better at the time, but seeing children at that age working, absolutely inappropriate and wrong in so many ways.
And then you said you got McDonald's afterwards. So that, I mean, McDonald's as a kid, come on now.
I know, right? And it was the one where they had the slides on the outside. So I scored for sure. I thought I scored on that one. not knowing what a billion-year contract was.
Oh,
But
so
yeah,
the
yeah.
Sea Org is like, how was that experience? I mean, I know I remember watching Leah talk a little bit about it. What is that like? What do you how do you describe that?
There's in the end, it's a pretty abusive and abrasive organization by nature. And I think L. Ron Hubbard, when he wrote the policies to make it a pseudo navy, that crept in for sure, because it gives power to, one, dumb people, and two, malicious and vicious people. So if you are by nature that way, it's going to amplify those personality traits. So, and in saying that, at the same time, at least at Golden Era Productions, it could have been a paradise if they had done it right. It was a fantastic property, beautiful. The food wasn't horrible. I know the people that in different locations had really bad food. Our food wasn't like horrible. It was probably better than an average family ate to some degree. And I'm going to get some pushback on that from people, but that's my experience. It was the abusive nature of the Sea organization. It was the lack of sleep. It was the pressure. It was the things about Scientology and the Sea Org that L. Ron Hubbard created that made it that way. So again, there could be times where everything was fantastic and you were with your brothers and you were fighting the good fight, and there was esprit de corps. It was the small little things that crept in, and the little evil tendencies that were allowed to, spread out through the organization, and mostly spearheaded by David Miscavage, that made that experience horrible.
So putting people against each other, I'm assuming, like dynamics like that.
Putting people against each other, physical enforcement of rules and regulations, group seances. So one of my worst experiences there was being called up in front of a crew of 300 people, with one person at the podium describing for over 3 minutes what a bad person I was, while having all my friends and peers watching from the seated area, and me having to just keep a straight face. And then the treatment of me afterwards, the people not looking at me, not talking to me, sleeping on a concrete floor underneath a desk in a garage for 2 weeks, those sort of things.
God.
Yeah, those sort of things. I won't laugh about that, because those are some of the horrible things that do go on there. But again, you want to separate, you talk about the people that did that. The person that did that was only one step away from David Miscavige. That was Jenny DeVock. So it comes from the top. Absolutely. And it's created, but Jenny DeVock is one of those people that I don't think's that smart, but got a lot of power, had an evil streak, and it was just amplified. So that sort of treatment was allowed to happen. And there are people that have far worse stories than me, far worse. I didn't take a whole lot. I wouldn't accept a whole lot, but people have far worse stories than that for sure.
For people that are non-Scientologists, what can you tell us about, just like, if we encounter someone who has left the organization, how do you, it's not like people are walking around with signs and saying, I just left Scientology. I mean, what do you say? How do we best support? I guess that's my question.
Watch the channels, support, put your comments in there. There's a lot of people that have great suggestions for books, for music, for activities. All of that sort of stuff helps out. A smile, a nice comment. And I get that it's not the job of all the subscribers to do that, but I found that they do that on a regular basis. I also really appreciate the intelligent questions they have about certain subjects. And I appreciate them using their voice to call out behavior that they see as inappropriate. I really, really do. I thought that was excellent, what they did with the Mike, Claire, and Mark video. I thought the questions were really smart, were really insightful, and I was just disappointed that they didn't handle it the correct way, which is again why I thought your review and commentary was so valuable, because you confirmed what a lot of us saw without any involvement. You were completely separate from that and making great observations about what went down. But if you do meet a Scientologist, if you do meet an ex-Scientologist or someone, just understand But like everyone, you don't know what that person's been through, what they're going through, and just a smile and a little graciousness and a little kindness goes a very, very long way.
Oh,
Yeah,
wow.
very long way.
That is,
yeah.
yeah. I mean, that's just in it. Like I said, I was thinking, I said, well, let's see, I've met a lot of ex-Mormons, I've met a lot of others, but I don't think I've ever really like encountered an
And they might not.
ex-Scientologist.
I'm very upfront about it. I'm very
Mhm.
upfront about it. I have no problem telling people, because after going clear in the aftermath, it's a little bit of a badge of honor that you were able to escape and survive a vicious cult. But you're not going to have a lot of people promoting that where and just talking about it in general. And that's by nature. I understand that. So yeah, you probably have met Scientologists and just don't even know
And
it.
I just don't know it.
Yeah. And again, here's a look. Most Scientologists are very kind, nice, polite people that are there to help. They really think they're going to help people while doing that. They're tricked into it. They're deluded into it, and they become victims of it. But the general nature of a Scientologist is to help people. It really is.
Yeah.
It's been corrupted by David Miscavige, and there's parts of Scientology doctrine that are vicious by nature and would never be corrected, and were written in the 1950s and 60s and don't apply today. But the David Miscaviges will stick to their guns, and they won't let any of that change. They could have changed their rules, they could have lightened up, and they would still probably be more successful and growing, but they refuse to, and that's why they're dwindling quicker and
So
quicker.
no possibility of reform in your opinion. Like what if
None. And I wanted to think there was a possibility, but I say none, because the draconian policy of L. Ron Hubbard will not allow that. You cannot change the core belief of that group or the core systems. You cannot change ethics policy, which by nature is abusive. Yeah.
wow, it
That's
was
my opinion.
created that way,
It
basically.
was for sure.
Oh my goodness.
For sure.
Sterling, do you want me to read some of the super chats that you got?
Up to
Or
you.
how do you
If you want to answer some questions, I got some time. We can
I don't
knock some
well,
questions out.
we had the famous Aaron in the chat here
I
a
saw
minute
that.
ago. He said, I'm looking to this chat. Love Rabbit Scientology. Well, thank you, Aaron. Shout out to you. Sonia sent $2.
Thank you.
Kiva, thank you for renewing the membership. Nicole says, doing great work, Rabbit. I appreciate you. Oh, thank you. And Sterling, too. Thanks for keeping it real. Blake says, what I love about the infamous Tom Cruise video is that he doesn't even seem to know how Scientology works, only that everyone outside the SPs just ants to step on. He
Yeah.
does have a very, I mean, and I thought maybe that was just a Hollywood thing about him, but arrogance,
Yeah, he
pompous.
does.
I mean,
And it's funny because you contrast him, because then you got John Travolta, who
yeah.
was arguably the nicest guy ever and really was kind and polite to everybody. But that's Tom Cruise. I mean, I haven't met him personally, but both my parents have met Tom Cruise, and both my stepfather and mom have met Tom Cruise, and they say that's kind of what he's like. It's unfortunate, but it is the case.
I mean, I would. What you see is what you get. Then I'm
Yeah.
assuming, right?
All right.
Well, there you go.
Right.
Don says, "Hey Sterling, I was looking forward to this live. Not new to Sterling, but new to Rabbit. Well,
Don.
thank you, Don. The mommer said, elephant in the room, child abuse regarding them performing F audits. The AF response to Aaron.
Who's AF? Oh, elephant in the room. Oh, these are both. Okay, well, let me address that if you don't mind. Can I?
Go ahead, please.
So there's been a lot of talk about auditing children.
Yeah.
In Scientology, and that is definitely, again, in my opinion, a case-by-case thing. Do I think auditing for children is good? No, absolutely not. Absolutely not.
As a Catholic, going to confession with an older priest, like that's kind of like, and I'm just thinking, right? Every religion has its little thing.
Yes.
But kind of making some compare and contrast too.
No, and I appreciate that. So, like for instance, when I was a kid, I got some processing, but it was a very non-intrusive part of Scientology processing. I did not get an interrogation as a kid. And it may be me particularly, but even my brother and my little sister, we didn't get interrogated as children. That may have been something that occurred later on or in different sectors of Scientology. I don't think it's as prevalent as some people think it is, but interrogation of children is disgusting, whether it's by another child, a teenager, an adult, or an elderly person. You should never interrogate a child. That doesn't happen. And even if that was happening and the child was doing something, it's the parent's job to address and discipline their child, not an organization.
Absolutely.
So there are people that talk about abuse of children, auditing children, and in my opinion, while they have their personal stories, it gets exaggerated a little bit. But also, any auditing of a child, I don't agree with, and any interrogation of a child is absolutely inappropriate. How prevalent it is, I'm not totally sure. My age group and the people I grew up with, it was not a common occurrence for them to get interrogated consistently. We did have to write up our overts or our bad acts and transgressions, which is also horrible. But I don't know the prevalence of that. So I hope that the mommers, great question, watch all the SBTV content and you'll get a feel of where that was more prevalent in different locations and stuff like that, because we all have our different parts of our stories that relate to that.
Wow.
I don't think we have to cover the aftermath thing. We did. If you haven't seen the rabbits videos, your videos are fantastic. Please watch those. Aaron did a video, etc.
Yeah. John says, is it accurate to say Scientology that Scientologists can't discuss Scientology to other Scientologists? Is that a real thing?
Absolutely. Well, they can't. They're terrible at it. It's really a funny thing. Aaron talks about it from time to time. They cannot talk about Scientology to each other, nor can they explain Scientology to other people. Yeah, I don't know why that is. It's just a phenomenon that happens there.
So it's not like Bible study. Like there is no Bible study.
No. There's so many different small facets of Scientology. There's one overriding thing, but when you really want to describe it, you might be describing the part that meant the most to you, which really isn't the upper levels that has aliens, but you're talking about communication. This person's talking about business development. It's all over the place. It's all over the place.
You said aliens. Oh my God.
Yeah, that's something. Yeah, there's a belief in alien.
Gotcha. The mommer said, love you both. However, meant children performing audits. Gotcha.
So thank you again for clarifying. In my time, my 29 years in Scientology and this organization, I only remember seeing 3 children at the ages of, I think, 13 to 16 ever perform auditing on another person. So, yeah.
Where did okay, why Zenu? Where
Zenu, that's something I learned about after I left Scientology.
I'm just, you learned after you left Scientology about Zenu?
Yes,
not before?
No, I learned from South Park. Yep. Yes. Yeah.
You're
I knew
right.
there was some secret thing. And I know my twin brother and we really wanted to know about it. It was this mystery thing that if you read it wrong, you could die. And my dad used to talk about it in glowing terms, but in the end, I believe in aliens. I do. I think there's extraterrestrial life. There's just too many stars and too many, dwarf suns and stars that you just could not be that there's not life elsewhere.
I just don't want to meet one, to be quite honest. Like I'm good. It's fine. We don't meet. I believe they're there. I don't want to meet them. Just
but his story is when you hear this story, you're like, that's what it is. I was expecting something more along the line of Star Wars and Obi-Wan Kenobi and Darth Vader. He really, really just mailed it in on the OT level story. He could have been so much better. Really could have been so much better. I was so disappointed in that. And I only laugh about it now. Yeah.
It's funny because I was mentioning we were talking about the last time we talked about Scientology. I had said how the Tom Cruise movie Vanilla Sky, and then there's that other one, the World of Wars.
Yeah, World of Worlds. Yeah.
Is that supposed to simulate a little bit of what Scientology is like? I guess. Like I had this view, and I said, I don't know, like some. Anyways,
I don't think Tom Cruise, my opinion, I don't think Tom Cruise really tries to relay Scientology through his movies. I think he does try to portray the good guy action hero as a common theme so that he's generally loved.
The hero.
Yeah, but I don't think any of his movies really try to move towards explaining Scientology to anyone.
Gotcha.
That being said, I mean, The Master was a fantastic movie, and that was absolutely about L. Ron Hubbard with Philip Seymour Hoffman. And I think people that have met our new L. Ron Hubbard said that was a very, very good depiction of L. Ron Hubbard and the beginnings of Scientology. So,
Gotcha.
yeah.
Thank you, Ken. You have a question here. Can I read this to you? It says,
Yeah,
"Hey
please go ahead.
Sterling, I was wondering if you could explain the doctrine of is it Kakan?
Kakan, yeah.
If you knew it, we know we only know what Leah Remini has explained of it, and we know John Travolta was given this designation. Can you explain any more?"
Blake, I can try. It was a bit of a mythical beast. I never, ever saw someone get Kakan while I was in the C organization or in Scientology. I was told that John Travolta did have it. It's basically the concept where you've done so much to help Scientology and to help the planet that you are untouchable, that they would ignore, even possibly murder if that were the case, because of your status and that sort of thing. Again, it's a mythical beast. It's like, was it really ever a thing? I'm not totally sure. But I had no one-on-one experience with it. And I don't think a whole lot of people talking now did either. Janice Grady would be a good person to possibly ask because she was with L. Ron Hubbard. And I believe he may have issued that to several people. But in my tenure, that was not a thing. We were always just in shit. There was no one end where you could get the best award possible. We were just always in trouble. So no, yeah, that's the best I can explain it.
Can I ask you one more question?
You got any question? Knock yourself out.
Said any question, guys.
I did.
Do you have any beliefs at this point? Any religious beliefs? Like where do you land with that?
I do not. Scientology turned me off to organized religion to some degree. I love history and I'm a student of history. So I'm fascinated by the origins of all major religions on this planet at this point. But I'm spiritual by nature. I do believe there's more than just a body. I don't necessarily believe in heaven or hell, but I believe there's more than just these mortal coils that we all have. And that's kind of where I'm at it now. I'm still figuring out where I am at in life on the subject. And so I read a lot of books and I study about it. Wow. But I also believe that religion, when practiced correctly, is good and can help people. And, and even though there's some bad histories, I do believe it's something that genuinely helps people get through life. And where that's the case, I appreciate it.
Wow.
Yep.
Tinkle Tits says, Tinkle Tits McGee. Shout out to Tinkle Tits. Did Miscavage make all Scientologists watch John Travolta in Battlefield Earth, the movie based on L. Arn's comic? I turned it into a drinking game.
I don't know. I don't know how she turned into a drinking game. That's fantastic. You're gonna have to explain that. Yes, he did. And I hear some stories from people that said they only watched it once and then went and saw Gladiator or another movie. I was a goody two shoes. I watched it all 3 times and tried to convince myself that it was such a fantastic movie. And I did, embarrassingly so. I was in a cult. I believed it was a great movie when I first watched it. And then I was slowly disillusioned of that fact. I wanted it to be successful, but in the end it was horrible and it was trash. And I should have seen Gladiator for sure.
It said, oh my gosh.
Yeah.
Sterling, I don't have any more questions for you. Do you have any questions for me? I mean, you've been awesome.
Your name's not Rabbit. And
no, it's not. Maybe it is.
What is your name? Can I ask?
Yes. So for YouTube, of course I have a legal name, but and this is my legal, it's my middle name. I go by Alex.
Okay.
Alex the Rabbit. So
Alex the
Rabbit, it kind of goes.
Okay.
But
okay.
The rabbit is how I would describe. I don't know if you've ever seen like a crazy rabbit running around when they're on well, no rabbit should be medicated, but like that's my ADHD.
Okay. Okay.
So I kind of took it on.
And can I ask you, what made you want to do a YouTube channel and cover the news that you do cover?
That's a loaded question.
The simple answer.
The simple answer, I just didn't know I could, so I did. That's what it is. I didn't know I could, so I did. I think I started my content just kind of like doing a little bit of celebrity stuff, celebrity tea, and found some really great people on YouTube and have had great friendships here. So
yeah, and it's a skill set to do what you do. And I just have to say, I think you do a fantastic job of it. I
oh,
really
well,
do.
thank you. I
I really
appreciate you.
do.
And it means a lot coming from you because it's like I've been watching some of your videos. I'm like, oh my God, like the way in which you speak and your passion is just amazing.
Of course, I think I talk too fast and I sound like a blubbering idiot, but thank you so much for saying that.
People are like, don't compliment him. Yes, I did. But it's
Yeah, you know what? That's funny. People have two thoughts on the subject of complimenting. I just believe that if someone's got something to compliment, you might as well say something about it. We always say stuff about the stuff there's not to compliment, right? Why not say the stuff? It's just how I am. It's my nature. If someone does something that strikes me, that moves me in a certain way, I have to comment on it. I don't know why that is, but I do. Maybe it's because for so long I didn't get those when I was in the Sea Org in Scientology. You didn't get compliments. You were constantly being beaten down and told you were trash and you weren't doing your job. So maybe I'm making up for lost time. And I do love complimenting people.
I love
But,
that you said that. Like we need to be better with each other, right?
yeah,
Like especially, wherever you're coming from, right? Whatever it may be. I know I don't take compliments very well because of, my background.
yeah,
I'm
yeah.
expected to do well and get it together in that type of situation.
And I
So it's
totally
just
understand too. That being said, though, especially in when you have a following like SBTV does, awesome. When I like Chico, when you have a following like SBTV does, I also think it's important to make sure when people are discussing subjects and talking about things that they stay factual, and also to correctly and politely question things
yes.
that you hear that may not make sense. And see, I'm open to that. If I say something and I'm wrong about it and someone wants to go, I disagree with you on that, I'm open to that conversation, provided it remains civil and we can have an intelligent conversation. Because some people will tend to get really angry and defensive and yell at the person they're talking to because they disagree with their point of view. I don't believe in that. One of the reasons why I do like talking to Aaron. Now, Aaron's had disagreements with people for sure. Absolutely. And that's life. But I'm open to the conversation about it. I think it's something that can be improved upon because, like, again, tonight I made some comments that people are going to have a big issue with, and I'm okay with that.
No.
I'm okay with that. Other creators, I'm okay with that because that's
Yeah.
my experience. And I'm also not insulting them or even saying that what they're saying is a lie. It's how they saw it, but it's not how I saw it.
Do
And
you feel like people are going to have like that was my biggest concern because when I did, I was following Aaron and then he did the video and that was my biggest concern of just I just wanted to talk about what was going on because I had been following him. But I always felt like, well, like, am I treading somewhere where I shouldn't? Do I really need to be talking about this?
you
And
know,
that's when I know I need to talk about it.
and that's great because there's two reasons why I think one, you didn't beat a dead horse. You didn't go on for 6 or 7 videos about it. You reacted to each video as it came out and you gave what you thought. You gave your honest opinion. You didn't say it with anger. You didn't say it with malice aforethought. You weren't nasty. You just said, I heard what that person just said and it doesn't make sense. I heard what this person said and it seemed like he was being open and truthful about it. And that's all. And that was great because that was jumping on top of something that was heated, but remaining calm and cool and collected about it, which I think is a very valuable thing.
Thank you.
Because there's also a lot of vicious people on YouTube, as we know, that will just dig and hurt and attack, and that's not okay. That's nasty.
It is.
Get on there, and if you disagree, say it in a pleasant way. State the facts and open it so that it can be discussed and it can be sorted and everyone can understand your points, right?
Absolutely. Aw. Well, thank you, Chico and Slayer. And then there's a question. Oh, I think you compliment people is because you see the good in people. Thank you. Hats off.
Thank you. I'm working on that. I try. I'm not perfect at it, but yes.
I mean, I think you're doing a good job so far.
Thank you so
You get a
much.
good job award today. Shout out to you. Sterling, thank you so much for coming.
Yes.
Um,
Thank you
I
for
hope
having
that
me
we
on.
can stay in contact and whatnot. I mean, anything. I love that I'm able to talk to because I have my true crime community here, and they're able to learn a little bit, whatever they can get from this, and hopefully assist as much as we can, whether it's bringing awareness to something, you know.
Hey, you're going to have a great true crime story when everything that is happening in the courts right now with the Danny Masterson, the final sentencing, the Church of Scientology, obstruction of justice. I can't wait to watch your content on that.
Yeah,
I think that's going to be fantastic. I really like the way you approach things, and I'd happy to be back on another time if you've got other questions.
yes.
It's really hard to talk about, 30 years of my life, even in an hour thing. I hope I wasn't all over the place.
You are.
So, I really enjoyed it. And, thank you so
my
much for having me on.
Well, thank you, Sterling. I appreciate you so much. Thank you for coming on.
You're so welcome.
Thank you, guys. Sterling's channel is pinned in the comments, so you guys can go subscribe over there. Shout out to him. And again, thank you for your time. I'm going to end this because I have a baby bunny child over there that's giving me the dirty look. Like, hurry up.
Okay,
so I got to go tend to her. Thank you so much, Sterling.
No problem.
You have a great night.
You too. See you later.
Right. Bye, guys. I will see you guys in the next one. Bye.
Bye.